Hi. I've been struggling since I was at least 13. I did well in school and I had enough friends, but I was a sad and lonely child, a depressed child. I did not, and I still don't really understand the breakdown that caused me to drop out of Penn twice and left me crippled as I stumbled my way through NYU and virtually everything that followed. I blamed myself for struggling. I kept beating myself up. I should be able to do this. I should be able to function. What's wrong with me? Some people dread their 30th birthdays, but I couldn't wait for mine. I'd struggled all through my 20s, and I was sure, I was absolutely positive that I was going to peak in my 30s. This was going to be my decade. I was finally starting to really like myself inside and out, and I was finally starting to let go of regrets, all of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. It was fine. College hadn't gone as planned. I wasn't a doctor or a lawyer or an academic. I wasn't married. I didn't have a boyfriend, but it was fine because I was ready. I was ready to stop being scared and to start being me. And I was beautiful. And I was manic. And it's confusing in retrospect because looking back and understanding that with mania comes delusions of grandeur, I wonder if I really was as beautiful as I looked to myself in the mirror. If I was as charming, if I was as funny, if I was as witty, as charismatic. It's not just confusing, it's painful. I'm choosing to believe that I was those things, that I am those things. There was a full moon with the partial lunar eclipse on my 30th birthday. And I started to believe that I could communicate telepathically with the man I thought was my soulmate. More than a soulmate, really, a twin flame. And that's when I began talking to him. That's when I began talking to myself. The next full moon, I started hearing voices, whereas before I'd been able to sense my acting teacher's response or reaction to ideas in my head. Suddenly I could hear. I could hear all kinds of voices, voices of famous people, voices of friends, voices of loved ones, voices of the dead. I thought the whole world was communicating with me, and for some reason I thought I was supposed to stop everything, put everything on hold, sit in a chair and listen and talk to these voices. So that's what I did. I stopped answering the phone. I stopped opening my mail. I stopped leaving the house. I stopped paying my phone, internet, and cable bills. I stopped everything. I woke up in the morning. I made a cup of coffee. I took my seat and I settled in for a day's conversation. And it wasn't just voices. I heard messages in music and on TV and saw messages in numbers and in graffiti. I felt like the whole world was communicating with me. I missed birthdays and weddings and funerals and births. My parents showed up at the holidays to bring me food and gifts and to try to get me to come home with them. They even brought social services and the police once to try to stage an intervention, but I knew the date and the day of the week and the president and was able to answer all of their questions. My family finally forced me to move back to Philadelphia from New York when they stopped paying rent for my West Village apartment. It wasn't until I started packing that I noticed the thick layer of dust that covered everything. I hadn't really been living there those last 2 years, except for the stove where I made my coffee and the chair where I sat and conducted my meditation. Everything in my apartment was untouched and forgotten. Understanding how sick I was didn't happen overnight. A series of realizations helped poke holes and cracks in the surface of my alternate reality bubble. It started with the dust. Some of these realizations were quiet and acknowledged with a quick swallow, a tiny gulp. Others were like a punch in the stomach that made me vomit and retch on the floor where I stood. Others made my knees give way and left me collapsed on the floor, clinging to a doorknob, trying to stay upright. Perhaps I'm not a psychic goddess. sent to Earth to bring about a new era of peace and beauty and love, who'd been Aristotle and Jesus and Marilyn Monroe in her past life. Maybe it's not my divine spiritual mission to be an Oscar-winning actress who tells stories of love and philosophy and beauty on the big screen, a modern-day prophet using modern-day media. Having always been an independent thinker, I faced the terrifying and humbling realization that I could no longer trust my own mind. I now found myself in a desperate and helpless position of dependency, forced to defer to the better judgment of the very people who only months and weeks before, in the depths of paranoia, I'd thought to be evil and actively seeking to harm me. I don't really feel like I'm in recovery. My medication leaves me feeling dull and lethargic. I've put on weight. My fridge is empty. There's dog hair all over the floor from when I was recently dog sitting my brother's dog. My sink is full of dishes and is starting to smell. I can't see the carpet on my bedroom floor because it's covered with piles of laundry. And I don't really remember if I showered today. Right now, one of the most difficult struggles I face is waking up in the morning. I just don't want to get out of bed. It's odd because at night I don't really want to get into bed. Most mornings, the first thing I do when I get out of bed is smoke a cigarette. While I'm smoking and slowly becoming more awake, I start to remember all the things on my to-do list for that day. I need to shower, make coffee, make my bed, figure out what to wear, check my phone for missed calls, voicemails, and text messages. What should I do first? Do I have to do anything at all? I get so overwhelmed with the basics, but that by the time I start thinking about calling to make a dentist appointment, or going to tutor my adult literacy student, or organizing my mail and paying my bills, I'm ready to cry. A lot of mornings, my head starts spinning during the coffee or shower first debate, and I just end up crawling back into bed. Right now, life is just confusing. So I'm wondering, how can I tell a story about recovery when this is what my life looks like? When I'm reading a book, a silly romance novel, and I catch myself smiling. The main characters are enjoying their first kiss, and it's perfect. Not too wet, not too pressured, just perfect. And I feel an odd tension near the corners of my eyes and in my cheeks, and I notice that I'm smiling. Quite without realizing it, and sort of in spite of myself, I'm smiling. At something cheesy, and dare I say it, hopeful. I'm smiling. And I think to myself, well, maybe this is recovery. Or maybe not recovery with a big R, but it might just be recovery with a little r. And I think I'll take it. Because I'm pretty sure that there was a time when I couldn't smile at anything at all. Or I was smiling, but at things that were not real, at things that only existed in my head, at things that only I could see or hear or understand. Smiles that struck other people as creepy and frightening or deranged. And standing here, telling you this story, I don't want to jinx it, but I might have some big recovery stuff under my belt as well. I just have to be brave enough to notice. Thank you.